Well, hey guys, happy Sunday night. I love that hat, John.
Thanks.
Getting into the Christmas spirit. And so thrilled to have Josh on our show again from the Saving Elephants podcast. I think this is what, your third time now to be on
Yeah.
our show. Man, it's
Welcome
so
back.
great to see you. Yeah, welcome back.
How many times more before I learn the secret handshake?
You know, I think you got it, man. Like I think
Okay.
you were on it. Like you got the nice mic, you got the great speakers, the good sound coming through, and hopefully you've got a nice holiday drink. Maybe some hot tea or something like that. You got going on. I can tell you right now, I got some chocolate mint whiskey. So
Uh,
stepping it, yeah, this
Man,
is the good
sounds
stuff,
awesome.
man. So how about you, John? What do you got?
I came to play. So I do have the. So this is classic Richmond stuff. Let me see if I can show it. Yeah, this is the gingerbread
Gingerbread. Oh
stout.
my goodness, Hardywood.
So that's 10% right there. And then, just in case things get a little bit more interesting, do have a Jameson's, but it is the stout edition.
Wow. Wow.
And the stout edition is rich coffee, smooth chocolate, and butterscotch.
That's awesome. So
So
how
ready.
about you, Joshua? What do you guys do for the holidays? Do you cook anything special? Do you have any recipes there that are secret to your family? What do you got, buddy?
Or are you talking pre-COVID? Because I don't know that this year we're going to be doing too much
Yeah.
out of the ordinary.
Yeah, we were just
Gosh.
talking about that on our other show. I have a libertarian and a liberal on it, and we were all talking COVID, and of course we all have different
Mhm.
opinions, on how it's going, how much it should affect us, how to what extent the law should be in place. But I mean, it really is. It's a different kind of holiday season this year, and figuring out how to navigate it, especially now because the
Mhm.
vaccine's not out yet, and even when
Mhm.
it does come out here in the next few weeks it's going to take a while before everybody gets it, and there's a lot
Yeah.
of fear and concern about that. So obviously going into Christmas, it's going to be a little bit different. So we're all kind of adapting to that. So I'm grateful to have this show to be able to talk to you guys, and be able to at least have some kind of holiday cheer as we go into it. I feel
I
like
can
we.
tell you.
Mhm.
We went over to the grocery store and we pretty much we bought the whole box of yeast that they had because
Yeah,
we're just going to be sitting in, putting on the Great British Baking Show and trying to replicate some bakes as best as we can.
yeah.
And so getting the yeast, we did honeycomb just recently, like chocolate covered honeycomb,
Wow.
which is essentially you just basically make caramel
Yeah,
and then you just throw a bunch of baking soda on it
yeah.
so that it gets all nice and crumbly and thick, and then you just break it apart and just cover it in chocolate.
Wow.
So Addie is really getting into the baking scene. Like whenever we start, she'll
Yeah,
wake up in the morning,
daughter.
come
Yeah,
upstairs, and I might be just doing some simple biscuits, but she immediately pulls up the stool, gets it there, and she's like, "All right, Daddy, I'm ready."
yeah,
And that's all she just basically gets her hands dirty.
yeah.
But that's kind of like where the joys are right now. And then seeing some of the Christmas lights, driving around Richmond because more people are doing Christmas lights than I think they did last year,
Yeah,
for obvious reasons. And that's been nice for them to see.
yeah, yeah. How about you, Josh?
Gosh, I wished I had more for you. I'm fairly close to someone who is high risk for COVID, so a lot of the getting out and mingling is a little bit off limits for me.
Yeah, I totally
But
understand.
just sort of the I guess Norman Rockwell tradition in say a pre-COVID year. My family on both sides lives pretty close here in Tulsa, and
Yeah,
does the traditional holiday spread, and we overeat like all good Americans in any holiday,
mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
just devour food and then presents.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I feel like it's something this year that you got to figure out creative ways, to be festive because there's so many things that have happened that people couldn't have anticipated or just didn't really expect to go the way that they had.
Mhm.
Whether it's COVID, obviously the election, it was a tough thing this year, especially for conservatives, Republicans, you know. There's so many things to be down on, and yet we're entering this time that's typically like a really happy time and enjoyable, and focusing on the positive is something that I'm really trying to do normally. Like I'm not big into all the Christmas stuff because I feel like it's just so materialistic and all that, and but this year I feel like we need it. If you think about like the
Mm.
actual origins of Christmas, from a Christian perspective, it was hope in the world. right? You think about um, Saint Nicholas, in modern day Turkey, bringing presents to orphans, and it's just like, this year with all the struggles, we need us some Christmas, So I can tell you one of
I
the things
agree.
that we did um, just the other day was we had a 5K right down the street, and I showed this in our other show, but I was all in for it. It was a blast because like I went full Santa, like the whole thing, and
Did
Oh,
you
was
have a
that you?
pillow? Did you have a pillow on your belly? Did you actually run with like a fat belly or something?
so first off, the things I gotta tell you guys is that I'm pretty sure that I accidentally got this. I just typed in Santa suit and then bought the first one that I could find as soon as I signed up for this jingle run, and I think it was from like a not safe for work type store because because I keep getting like emails and stuff, and I'm like, what? Why am I on this distro? Get me off! They're like trying to sell me like
What did you get
fake
on Facebook?
clothes, and I'm like. They're like,
Do the,
oh, this is the store I got my Santa suit from.
do those Santa pants just rip off?
I gotta look in the back and make sure there is a
Yeah.
back.
Just
There's a beard
Velcro
for
to
up
it.
here and a beard
Like,
for
but
whatever.
it was great. Yeah, I had like the beard, I had like the hat, and then it was like camo-y, like military, awesome. Had the gloves, the whole thing, and then we had like bells on it, and it was just kind of like a socially distanced run type deal.
Yeah.
So it was fun. The worst part though was like the hair. Like the hair was like trying to breathe, and then like of course it's like cold. It's not like crazy cold, but it's about 40 degrees. So you're running and like like you have all the saliva that you want to spit out. There's no like, do I sacrifice the mask or what? Like,
What I'd love to have
ah!
seen is I would have loved to see you with the Santa beard and like a Bane mask, for COVID, and trying to run in that.
But like I powered through all the way to the end of the 5K. I did not have the best time, but I had a lot of fun. But it
Awesome.
was sweet, man. Like I went to Walmart before this just to like get some ribbon to tie the bell on and stuff, and I needed some sunglasses, that didn't completely fog up when I was running. And people were coming up, and they were like, "I want to take a picture," and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I had some little girl come up to me who thought I was Santa, and she was telling me, what she wanted for Christmas and stuff like that. And she was like, I didn't know you'd be coming this year, like, so it was sweet, man. And it was fun. And, I guess this is like a tradition every year, around here in Florida, to do
Yeah.
this run. And so they like had a couple more protocols and, mask and everything and stuff like that, keeping your distance. But it was fun. And I feel like that's my goal is to figure out what can we do, for Christmas this year that, to still make it enjoyable and focus on the good, even with so many things, going the other way.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten me thinking with the girls. I mean, we're playing up an advent calendar a little bit more. It's not just one of those that you get that are like at Walmart that have like a little piece of chocolate in them. It's like a little bit more of a significant advent box that you can fill in with treats and things like that. But you can put in like Bible verses and share a little bit about like the story of Christmas, and that's what we've been doing, which has been really, really helpful. But they were really, really stoked to put up the tree this year. I think that we were a little bit late in putting up lights because we were going around the neighborhood, and some of these places go really far out with the lights that they'll do.
Yeah.
And so Ellie and Addie would come home and they're like, "Where's our lights? We need to put up the lights." And so we finally put up the Christmas tree today, and I'm pretty sure we're going to keep it up until like maybe March at
Yeah.
this rate, all throughout all of winter, just because it was such a positive time for them to be able to set it up and to be able to start putting up the ornaments, do the advent calendar.
Yeah.
And I think those are going to be good. I'd like to actually go over to the Red Cross and give blood a little bit more consistently and bring Ellie over just because she's type 1 diabetic, and do this as safely as possible, but let her see that like she's used to bleeding, right? She's used to bleeding because of diabetes. And just, she always feels like she's the only one who has to get her blood checked, her blood like given for a medical purpose. And to have this done, in December would be a really good thing for her to see.
I get it.
Not for her to do, but for me to do and her to see it happen.
Yeah.
And be a little teaching moment for her.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is a time when like your true ethics can come out, your true faith in your belief and all that stuff, your hope, can really like guide you through it. Right. Cause it is, I mean, it's easy to get down, it's easy to get down. I mean, on yourself and on the country and on the world and all that. I know we were just talking about the election and
No
you
kidding,
know
yeah.
it's dragging out, like Trump's still challenging it and all that stuff. But like I'm just making a dedicated effort to focus on the positive. And
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the time to also to be patient and to be like caring for other people as well, because I can't tell you, like I'm a supervisor over at the VCU,
yeah,
right, Richmond, so it's just a university, but I've got about 7 to 8 people that I supervise, and I kid you not, pretty much all of them have broken down at least once over the course of this year, just due to various stressors that have occurred. Some, most recently, and like just to have the patience to be able to sit there and listen and help process with them what they're going through is immensely, helpful and good for them. But it's what people need. People need a season of goodwill and cheer
right,
and
yeah,
kindness.
yeah. I totally agree with that. I agree.
Christmas season,
Mhm.
of course, is supposed to be indicative of the peace on earth, goodwill to men. And if there's something to look forward to or to hope for in this particular Christmas amidst all this craziness, and I don't know, maybe it'll be worse, but I would hope that a reduction of the commercialism and maybe
Oh
more of a
yeah,
focus on that aspect of just the peacefulness the holiday is supposed to bring in. Because
yeah,
I'm with you, John. We need patience. We also need a lot of peace in this season.
yeah.
Yeah. I
That's
was, so like I'm pretty sure like Black Friday, I think was horrible for businesses. Horrible. They were expecting, I guess, much more than what had happened. Same with Cyber Monday. I mean, for my girls, we ended up like I gave them $5, and I said in their advent, it was like, okay, this $5 is not for you. It's for you to go to Five and Below and to go buy something for somebody else, right? So you get to pick the person that you want to buy for. You get to pick the person you want to buy for, and then we can go. And there wasn't a whole lot of people, even though it was a weekend, Saturday, and I think that either people are staying home like they should, which is good, or maybe the buying is down and it's all online. I'm not sure, but it actually made me feel a little bit better that things aren't as busy in the shops, like they have been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like what people are searching for is a narrative that makes sense, right? It's time for America to really do some thinking and to reset, their expectations for the future, and like you said, Josh, to make some changes, to
Mhm.
Christmas, but to how we think, you know, about things, whether that's conservatism, whether that's life itself, honestly is resetting some of our values because people just get so into the presidential election. I mean, just
Yeah,
take
they
a
did.
minute and think about it, right? Like it used to be you would go into Facebook and there'd be like one random guy talking about politics, like oh, well, that's weird. This is not what Facebook's for. It's for seeing your friends, your college buddies. But everybody was posting about politics, right? I mean, even now you go on there and
Yeah.
Facebook's trying to navigate and Twitter's trying to navigate what they think is the truth versus what other people are putting, and it's still this hotbed, of criticism. The same thing with COVID, man. It's like it seems like everybody you talk to is an expert, on their opinion, and they're a doctor and they've done all the reading, on this, and it's 100% false or it's 100% true. You're either, a jerk for not having a mask or you're a jerk for having a mask on, and there's still all
Mhm.
polarization. So I'm totally with you, Josh. Is in response to that, what we need is to promote some things like understanding, and respect, and ultimately peace. And that comes from having a higher look at things. I think something that Burke talked about. The person our channel's named after is in the midst of everything that was going on in his life and in the world at the time with
Mhm.
France and the Revolution. The American Revolution was happening
Mhm.
when Burke was alive. He had all this chaos. And yet this was a guy who stuck to his principles and was very strong and very wise in what he said and did. And I feel like that's got to be us, right? That we've got to carry on Burke's legacy in chaotic times, and that's where you can show what you're made of. But
Yeah,
it's not easy.
I
It's not
think
easy.
just bouncing off of the idea of Burke here, especially during the time of Christmas, a lot of people think of him as a utilitarian optimist, right? That he just
Yeah.
felt like, people will gravitate to do what is good for not only them, but also for their local community, which is great. But I think that deeper down, he believed in a more of a natural order of things that providence, a divine entity that is working not only behind the scenes, but in every molecule, of our world actually is a moral order. And that's what gives him hope. That's what gives him the optimism they talk about. He's not just thinking that people will do the right thing. He's saying that there is something higher in this entire world that is doing the right thing almost regardless of our actions,
Yeah.
and that's what is guiding the world. And that, I think that is what, the story of Christmas is about for us and our
Yeah,
family.
absolutely.
And that's what we tell about, the story of Jesus. There's a really good thing that I'll put a plug in for. It's called the Jesus Storybook. It has been an immensely amazing Bible study for the girls, but it really establishes that fact. Not that people are amazing, not that the Bible is filled with heroes, but that God is the true hero out of this entire story that he is telling. He is guiding it along to his purpose, which has been really encouraging for the girls.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's amazing, man. Yeah, so I think about that, and then I start to think about like the next year going into 2021. What are we going to face, and how
Yeah.
are we going to conduct ourselves? And you think about, I mean, we were just talking on the Refounding Fathers show about the likelihood that Biden is going to be the president. What's that going to mean for Republicans and conservatives? The divided government, all of those things, but. At the same time, I feel like it can be about more than just politics. As we were talking about how politics can be very small, in terms of the a more holistic view, of the world. So you're talking about your faith, there, John. There's so many other parts of life. Kyle was saying the libertarian that we have on the show. He was talking about how I haven't honestly thought about politics. Yes. Sorry, I think I just lost my cord here. But yeah,
So
there we go. Back up. Yeah, so he was talking about that, and can you guys hear me? Okay.
yeah, I can hear you just fine.
I can hear
Can you hear
you.
me all right?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, I just had a cord
Yeah.
pop out there, but yeah. Kyle was saying he was like, yeah, I've had so many other pressing concerns, taking care of family members, and things like that are going on, and it's the same
Exactly.
thing
Yeah.
here. Yeah, is trying to take care of my kids and my son having a birthday, and how do we celebrate that without having 20 kids over? Trying to be smart about it, and they.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like for me too, like I honestly have not read a news article in the past week about Biden, Trump, or anything out of a personal choice for my own health, because there's been Addie's birthday, there's been my mother-in-law's birthday, her dog passed away, like there's been Thanksgiving, like so many things have like been happening all at once in succession, and like family has just been the most important element, during this time. We didn't record, last week for some of those very reasons. It's just I need to reconnect with, I mean, I like it was like when we were talking about the social dilemma. I checked, one day, how long have I actually been looking at my phone? 6 hours.
Yeah.
Looking at my phone for 6 hours. I'm pretty sure I'm only conscious for like maybe about, 15 of those hours, so like,
Yeah.
geez, like what am I doing? And it was a strong sense of reevaluating how much time am I actually focusing on the faces of my daughters, of my wife, of, my family, and the people who mean the most to me.
Yeah. And it's there's a concept that Burke I think followed pretty well, which is a concept we've talked about it called natural law, and it's sort of this belief system that there is a right and wrong, there is truth in the world, there is proper actions to take. Nice. And like finishing your beer, but
I can't even play
um,
this time yet.
that there is it's not just entirely left up to your choice or your perspective, that there is a grounded reality, and it's easy to lose sight of that. It's easy to lose sight of that and everything that's going on, but if you can hold fast to that, if you can hold fast to a concept of good, and adhering to that, then it's something that can really pay off. It's like going into a tough situation, but following the map, to be able to get out of the dark woods, right? Um, listening to your GPS when you're in a city that you don't really know, right? That's how I think of natural law. That's how I think of, virtuous ethics, in this time is if things truly are unknown, what the future holds, then we need to stick to what we know. We need to stick to proper actions and caring about other people. is a big part of that. It's one of those things that pays you back. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, Burke, if I've got the quote right, said something to the effect of good order is the foundation of all good things.
Yeah.
And I think he was probably speaking of natural law or had something of that nature in mind when he said it. And I think, Wes, is kind of like what you said. It is foundational that without a sense of a moral anchoring, it's hard to know where we are in this world. You
Yeah.
know, those of us who would hold to maybe in a broad sense what we might call natural law tradition, I think sometimes can even do it in a wrong way. I've heard it said oftentimes that um, Christians sometimes will speak of United States going to hell in a handbasket. I don't want to say necessarily gleefully, but almost with this sort of sense, well, God's in control. And I think sometimes what they mean by that is everyone else is going to suffer, but those of us who are cool with God are going to get through this okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's necessarily what kind of a good foundation, a right foundation teaches us, which is we're going to suffer along with everyone else. But there is a hope beyond this life, beyond our temporal here and now. And I'm not trying to get super Christianese about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I just mean I think that is a deeper sense of being anchored, because if what your anchor is that nothing bad is going to happen to me, that's going to be a pretty shabby anchor when something bad happens to you.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I loved most about Burke's concept of natural law was that he had an element of what you might call empiricism with it. And that by that I meant exploration, right? So a lot of times when people say the words natural law, or they say, "Oh, I believe in truth or universal truth," or things like that, a lot of times the tendency is to make it seem like, oh, and it's very easy to figure out, and it's not. It's not. Life is not easy to figure out. I mean, and talking about Christianity is you see people in the Bible who are struggling to try to figure out what God's will is for their life. Trying to figure out how to navigate COVID is not easy. It's not easy with the situation you're dealing with, Josh. John's talking about his kids. I'm talking about how to, figure out how to keep it positive. Is I feel like in America, over the past several months, is that we have lost any concept of grace and patience with each other. And guys, we have to reclaim that because it's kind of like this concept of, well, if everything's very simple and easy, well, then why, people must be corrupt to not follow it. But that's not life. That was never, like, if you think about it from, Democrats just roasting Trump, right, over COVID, but no one knew what to do in the first like several weeks of this crisis. We're still figuring out, things. But then at the same time, we want to do the same thing, to liberals and Democrats and roast them, for their beliefs about government, and trying to find some type of space where you can have a level of empathy and a conversation about whatever it is, politics, philosophy, religion, is just in very short supply. And I think we have to uncover that because the truth is complex. It always is. Trying to navigate the next several months is going to be complex. And what Bert gives you is a sense of, yes, there is a right and wrong out there, and we need to try. That's where the empirical piece of it comes at for me is if we don't know what the right way forward is, then we need to try a few things and then take time to reflect and see how it turns out, see what effect it has, and go from there, right? And if we kind of approach life with this curiosity and an exploration and reflection, then we can start to look at, what we're doing, what our ancestors have done, and start to be very prudent, he would call it, in the actions that we take. And that is not what we live in right now, I feel like, in this country. We live in this, hey, I don't like you, therefore I'm going to demonize you, and I don't have to listen to you ever again, right? Like, that's what we live in. Is, oh, you don't share whether it is my politics or my faith or my football team, like then I don't have to listen to anything you say, and let me tell you 1,000 reasons why you're wrong. We've got to get out of that. We've got to start giving each other grace.
Yeah. When you're talking about the state of nature, I mean, one of the things that comes up to me, especially with Burke's history, if you look at what the state of nature meant for him, you can look at the times where he advocated for it, where he actually brought it out into his writings and his speeches. And like the two major, most significant times that he stated about the state of nature being a significant force that drives reality is when he was trying to defend the people of Ireland from English rule, right? Because of the penal laws, because of the religious differences, he knew that there could be some tyrannical effects on America, but he knew that those effects were happening right there next door in his own hometown. and he starts citing the state of nature, not
Natural.
in a Hobbes or Lockean sense, but a more Aristotelian classical sense of saying these people are created in the image of God.
Yeah.
These are people, and we need to treat them like people that have their own identity, their own culture, their own way of life that's lasted for hundreds and even about 1,000 years. Like, let's treat them that way. And he did that the second time with the East India Trading Company when he was calling out Warren Hastings and saying, you say that I just inherited this constitutional right to be able to treat these people like slaves. He's like, that does not give you the right. That is a right of power that is completely arbitrary. You need to treat these people as if they are their own people with their own identities. And to carry that over at least to a more local sense of like the Christmas spirit is just, to me, it goes back to looking up and seeing people as people. They're not just ghosts walking, they're not just trees walking across the field. Like, they are their own people with their own families. And it is time it is a time to connect. It is a time to connect with them, to get to know them in a way and support them. Again, the only way that we've been able to do that is to just, pick one family that we have decided to bring into our own social circle and say, we will, I will facilitate your daughter's virtual learning as best as I can. Even though she's ADHD, even though she's taking medications, we will make the best of it.
Yeah.
And that's the only way that I feel like I can show that this is our way to connect with you. And I think that's where it comes down to, is that if everybody was to do that to one of their family, like, that would be a big accomplishment.
So let me give you a specific example, right? Because we posted this on our page earlier this week, and it was for this reason. There was a celebrity, an actress who came out. Her name was Ellen Page, and she came out this week in like very public fashion that she was transgender. So she is now a he. Her name is now his name. And it goes from Ellen to Elliot, right?
Elliot, yeah.
Now, yeah, you'll now call me he. And like Hollywood did this big thing where they went through and they kind of like rewrote history to say, he did all of these things as if, Elliot had always been Elliot, right? Because he made this choice, right? And that's something that everybody has been talking about. And I think of that in these terms, in addition to everything we've talked about, even before that, is how do we approach this situation? Like, how do you respond? Like, do you care at all? What if this was someone, your neighbor or a friend of yours that made this choice? Because people do. There's a natural law argument to this where you think about, okay, this isn't something that normally happens with many people. You think about biological sex, you think about gender, you think about, is it purely choice? And coming from a standpoint where, well, hold on a second, there's all these aspects of a person's biology that tend to be very fixed and not subject to choice. And is all of our gender just purely just invented? Is it just a social construct? I think there's evidence for a lot more than that. And there comes the natural law of there is a definitive right and wrong. You'll see conservatives posting on this saying there are two genders, male and female, and that's it. No more discussion, right? There comes the natural law of this is how God made us, and there is no question. But then I think about the empirical side of Burke, which the question to me becomes, that being the case with, two genders being created, or two biological sexes, better to say, what is the best way to handle this? How do you talk to somebody who's making these choices? How do you show a level of empathy? Because who knows what else is going on in this person's life, right? How do you ask questions? Why did you make this choice? What do you think it will solve? Why do you feel, like you were in the wrong gender? Asking those questions and listening to people who have gone down similar roads or had similar, crises in their life. Because I'm not someone who's had that, right? But maybe I take the time to listen to figure out not only the natural law piece, but also how to handle the situation, what to say, those type of things. Does that make sense? I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, Josh.
Yeah, I had similar thoughts. I think when I learned about that, you were actually the one that brought this to my attention. I was reading about it a little bit earlier today. I actually had a great deal of anger around it, some of the articles I had read.
Yeah.
And when I say anger, it was because it seems to me like individuals such as this are often used as chess pieces in a larger cultural battle that we have.
Bingo. Yep.
And I'm not personally close to anyone who is transgender. And so maybe this is a bit of a leap, but if you'll just go there with me for a second, I am close to multiple individuals who struggle with homosexuality.
Okay.
And I use the word struggle very deliberately because they grew up in a tradition where they were taught and believed that homosexuality was a sin, that it was wrong. It was something they ought not to partake in. And I'm a little bit older, and having known some of these individuals now for many years, it was interesting watching the development of some of their thoughts. Some of them have remained in the struggle. Some of them have a tendency to be attracted to both men and women.
Yeah.
And at certain times in their life, one will be stronger than the other. Some of them have, for many, many years, chosen to remain celibate. Came out, hey, I'm gay, but I'm going to be celibate. Some of them have reneged on that and gone on to marry someone, or some of them have lived with another homosexual partner, but at least as far as I'm aware, and at least what they've told me, have remained celibate just because they say they need the companionship, not necessarily the sexuality. Anyhow, I'm saying all this to say, I know these people. I know their struggle. I know how much pain this has brought into their life. And the idea that we have this 800-pound gorilla of the culture trying to shove down our throats the instant someone says, hey, guess what? I'm no longer female, I'm now male, that we all have to switch on a dime, not only to accept this, but to now celebrate it and to now say they're brave.
Yeah.
Maybe this is ultimately where Ellen Page will wind up. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe she will later decide this was a mistake. Maybe this is part of many years of struggle for her.
Yeah.
But she's a human being. I think that's my main thought is it's not about her being male or female. It's about her being a human being more than either of those things.
Yeah.
And I completely take your point. Look, I'm a conservative. I do think there are two sexes. I recognize that sometimes individuals can be born with multiple, say, genitalia, different parts where it can be difficult. I know there's a psychological component to it. I'm not trying to make this super complicated, but I think we err. And honestly, on the right too, we kind of do this also, right? You sort of know everyone pulls out their knives and guns, and we know what the rhetoric is going to be.
Right.
But at the heart of all this is an individual who probably is suffering, and that gets overlooked.
What's the best way to communicate with that person? What can we learn from people's choices, whether we agree with them or don't? That's what gets lost. That's the empirical nature. So I think of natural law that where a Burke did is that. Yes, there is a right and wrong. Yes, there is a natural order to things that I believe is a higher, order instilled by God. But then in the midst of that, right, there is just a fog of confusion and mystery and doubt and all of these things. Frankly, for those to explore, to figure out, and not everybody is the same. I mean, it was absolutely fascinating because I posted this on our page, and we had people who are transgender comment on this, and they said exactly what you did, Josh. Is like, this is horrible, how they're treating this person, and publicizing it and everything else, and trying to make him a leader of a movement, and then at the same time an object of ridicule, right? Absolutely. And that's where the empiricism would say, well, let's hold on a second and let's wait and let's see the best way to handle this, because it's not one size fits all. And, and I think if we adopt more of that empiricism, while retaining our belief in right and wrong, then it can lead to many more conversations. I had a friend of mine, and I won't tell you his name, but kind of same thing is that he was kind of like wrestling with, am I straight or gay? And he brought that to my attention. And there's a part of me that wanted to tell him exactly what I thought and what he should do or what I do if I was having those, type of thoughts. But you know what? I chose at first to say, well, listen, and this was a guy who was a Christian. And so I said, have you prayed to God about it? Have you talked to God about it? Have you brought those concerns to him first before you've talked to me? And he was like, no, I haven't. I'm like, well, that's stop one, is that you need to first do that as opposed to rushing to judgment, And that was something that I think he received very well because he saw an element of respect because, hey, you can talk to God just as easily as I can. And I think that's how we have to approach life, is figuring out what are the techniques and things like that that work with people and not just kind of presuming, one thing or the other. because that can just turn someone absolutely against you, and then then you lose any sense of relationship at all. So those are my thoughts, and that's maybe that's in some ways a roadmap to get back to a sense of civility in our country. Is starting to explore ethics that way, as opposed to hey, you have to do life the way that I say. So
I can do you one better. I can say
go.
just because there only exist in the beer world ale and lager doesn't mean there's an infinite number of notes of complexity that we can explore together to find what works. But in all reality, what I'm I have a similar story to you, Wes, which is that back in high school, his early high school years, there was a really good friend of mine, and I remember us having to sleep over together, and we were eating, we were alone, and he came out as identifying, or at least as queer, but suspecting that he had some homosexual tendencies and that he was going to run with it. And like you, I was thinking about, like, I could tell exactly what I think about that, what my ideology tells me. I can pull out any number of scriptures to say, some of the things that I guess I'm supposed to say. But all I ended up saying was, I hear you on that. Like, I want you to know first and foremost that I'm your friend through and through. Like, you never have to question that. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
And like, just being able to say those words, to him was a big game changer, because his parents, he couldn't come to his parents for that. He couldn't come to our other group of friends for that, because that would really make them uncomfortable. And yeah, maybe, to be honest, it made me uncomfortable, but it was, I know, what it needed to be said and what I truly meant, which is that, like, okay, you can identify however you like, but we're still friends, right? And like, that kind of caught him off guard. He was like, yeah, we are, as long as you're friends with me. And like, I think that's the hurdle that needs to be overcome first and foremost, because there does exist just this sense that as soon as you come out of the closet, that all of a sudden all your relationships are going to be severed. You're going to be an outcast, and that's just how it's going to be.
Yeah.
So that's point one. The other point is that I know that Elliot, is there's some frustration about Elliot being used as a kind of a chess piece here for the LGBT movement, but Elliot's been a long time advocate for LGBT, even on a
That's true.
very political level, even going up to like Ted Cruz's face and just like having an all out like impromptu debate
Yeah.
about these very specific issues back when Elliot identified as lesbian, she. And so like that's been going on on the political spectrum for a good while now, which has culminated into this point. So I'm not quite sure that it's only news outlets trying to pull this together. I think the letter itself was very much a strong stance, not only about coming out as trans, but also about calling out those who would try to create policy against those who identify in the LGBT, QIA plus movement. So like, there's a couple of those things to consider that I wanted to put into the discussion. But it is, and I think that's why there's a lot of pinpointed focus on Elliot as well.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. I saw something. I think it was like um, sarcastic or whatever, but it was someone who was posting, and they were like, "I want to," and it was a liberal. I think it was like, "I want to congrat Elliot, for making this step and becoming, trans or whatever, and being so brave." And then the very next comment was also, now that he identifies as a white, straight male, is part of the oppressors and the problem. Like we're going. It was really
Now relinquish that power.
but
I
this,
know this is a big subject, but this is maybe a little bit of a soapbox for me. I'll keep it super brief. I think among one of the many problems we have in our culture is a crisis of masculinity.
yeah,
And I think one of the things men, speaking as a man, need desperately in order to tap into that masculine drive is a sense of a defense of femininity or defense of women. That is really hard to do if we are of the mindset that women are just a what do they call a biological construct or sociological
yeah,
construct.
social construct.
I don't know as a man how to be a defender of that.
Yeah,
And I think there's a lot of fallout from this, and of course we could go point by point. There's more than just that, but I always think of that this is playing into, I think, some of the crisis of masculinity we have.
yeah. Oh, that's a great question. That's a big subject. You're right. I mean, I ultimately what I come to, guys, is conservatism to me is more than just, oh, you vote, Republican or whatever, right? Like how you vote, or are you a right winger? It's so much more to me, and that's what I get from Burke. Is that conservatism is more a philosophy or a perspective that's useful for life, and what I mean by that is I see conservatism as opposed to radicalism. Radicalism being, hey, let's just, throw everything upside down. Conservatism is constantly looking at things and people and places and tasks, jobs, whatever, and saying, how can I sort out what's good in this thing or this experience or this relationship? Hold on to that and then try to mitigate or change or improve what's not so good, right? It is this constant process of not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. That is conservatism at its core, right? You see Burke, who was trying to preserve the relationship between Great Britain and the United States. He was constantly trying to figure out the good in things as he also like called out the bad. And now I just think that we're experts at calling out the bad, and we kind of leave aside the whole process of sorting out where, because it's not easy to sort out those things, which part is good and which part is bad. And it's so easy to simplify things. And as we start to do that and we realize how complex it is to do that, that's where some of that humility comes in. That's where you start to realize, oh man, this is really a complex puzzle. Ethics being that way, and it can be very exciting as you start to sort out, okay, this is what I believe and this is what I think the truth is, but then in this case, does it still apply, or to what extent? Or this person's make these choices and I may not agree. I start to talk to them and I realize there's more to the story. um, those type of things occur, and we have to have the courage to sort through it, right?
Yeah.
So
Well,
uh,
I think what
to
what
me,
makes, if I don't mind.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Wes.
No, you're
You can
good.
finish up.
You're good. No, I was just going to say that
I think
gives you.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I sorry. What I was wanted to jump in just because you gave me some really good thoughts was that I think what is a good quality of a Burkean conservative is someone who can jump, who has those borderland experiences. Like if you look at Edmund Burke,
Yeah.
Irishman, becomes English statesman, you know, advocates for people all the way over in India. Like
Yeah.
he wouldn't be able to do that most likely unless he had kind of had the upbringing that he had, where he saw the abuses that his own government could produce, and yet work within that government to try to create justice on a global level, even in the 18th century. So like I think that a good quality of a Burkean conservative is someone who's had those experiences where this is who I grew up to be, and these are the experiences where I've really had to challenge my worldview. Has my worldview ever been challenged? Have I ever traveled? Have I ever engaged with the other, the person who I thought was my enemy, the person who I thought was
Yeah.
destroying the worldview I had? And if you can answer yes, yes, I have engaged with those people on a level that is civil, then you have a good quality of being a Burkean conservative. I think you need to have that initiation into this worldview before you can really start engaging. And it's not to make it exclusive. It is just to be realistic of, you need to be challenged. You need to be challenged that maybe I'm not getting the whole picture. Maybe I'm not seeing things as they need to be seen. And from there, I can jump to a level of perspective that at least admits the blinders that I have, so that I can engage better in knowing where things need to
Yeah.
go from here, where the conversation needs to go from here. Being a Burkean conservative, being Burke, it was hard. He had to understand Catholicism. He had to understand.
Yeah.
But he was advocating for Protestants. He was advocating for people who weren't even Christian at all. Like it just takes a level of complexity that we're not willing to allow for ourselves. We like the convenience, I
Right.
think, of just knowing where we are and advocating for that one stance.
Absolutely.
I,
Kenneth has
I
got it.
think
Like,
it should be acknowledged, John, just to jump off of what you said just there, that having your worldview challenged is terrifying. It's
yeah.
absolutely terrifying. I mean, I've been there. Anyone who has genuinely had their worldview challenged, it feels like drowning. It's a very good and a healthy process. But if you're going through that for the first time, just be aware of the fact it's okay that it's scary. It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah.
It's true. It's like you just look around and you're like, I am wrong.
Yeah.
What if I'm wrong?
What if I'm wrong about everything? I think is where
What
minded.
if I can't see anymore? Like, it is scary. You're totally right.
It's the first time that you actually like talk to an atheist without trying to convince them, of the alternative. It's like, let's have an exercise. You consider for a minute, like think about it. What if God is real and does love you, right? And I'll be over here and I'll think about what if he doesn't, and then we'll come back and talk. Right? Like we both like do that, and like see how we feel. I came back terrified. How about you? Be like, yeah, I came back terrified too, right? Yeah. Let's talk about it. Kenneth has got it though. I love this. Listen to this comment. He was talking about, this is from earlier in the broadcast. It was about COVID, and he said about the mask. It becomes a matter of, it doesn't hurt me to wear it. Like waiting for someone to walk through a door before me. It doesn't hurt. I do believe that a mask is a good idea, but if we learn later that it wasn't that effective, so what? And I don't think anyone has ever said it better.
I'm such an idiot.
Right? That there is the empiricism that we're talking about, right? Is that open-minded of, let's see, okay, what's the con? The con is I had to wear a stupid mask and it really didn't do all that much, which in many cases is probably true, right? But oh well, I wore it, whatever, and I went on with my life. It's not a huge inconvenience,
At least mine has Baby Yoda on it.
Lockdown of the country and all that stuff. It's having that open mind in life and not rushing to judgment until you've had a chance. Whether it's the election, right? Like who won Arizona? Like Fox is calling it a medium. Like, whoa, like slow down. Let's look at this. Allegations of fraud. Let's take a look. It's certainly possible there's fraud in every election. Let's look through the facts and all this stuff before we say like, no, there's absolutely no fraud or it's absolutely a rigged election. Let's wait and see. You meet someone who doesn't share your belief system. They don't belong here, like that to me. And again, you can take this all the way back to Christmas is, a wrong way to approach life of just assuming that you have nothing to learn, before you even have a chance to look. Now, once you've looked into things and you've had discussions, absolutely form an opinion, have conviction, and that's that natural law piece. But don't leave out the empirical side of it because, God will do things to surprise you. The world is going to surprise you. Other people will surprise you. They'll make different choices than what you expected, and that's part of the fun and mystery of it. So having that Burkean approach, to life, is something that can kind of help guide you. It's a tool. That's what I see conservatism as. It's a tool of, let's make sure before we destroy something and burn it down that, we've really taken time to sort out, do we need to do this? And are we, losing some good in it that we should be preserving? So that's how I approach it. That's how I approach everything from politics to whiskey, to COVID, to election fraud, to fraud, to whatever, right? And it seems to serve us pretty well. So anyway, this has been awesome. I really appreciate it. It's great to see y'all again. Josh, it's so awesome to have you on the show.
Good to hang out.
Yeah, it's always a blast. I love doing this every Sunday night, especially as we head into the new year and all these things. It's just refreshing to me. John as well, always a pleasure to have you on here. So any last words for you guys? Any big events, holiday stuff coming up that you want to talk about? Any drinks that you're going to polish off in the next couple of weeks, John?
I think I'm like my fourth shot, man. I don't even know what's up and down anymore. No, I mean, I think that I'm going to get a homebrew ready, which is going to be really nice. It's going to be bourbon barreled, which is going to be pretty awesome. And so we'll see how that goes. It'll probably take about 3 months to get through that first and second fermentation process. Yeah. So that's going to be a really fun thing to do. Other than that, what's that?
Throw a little vaccine in there with it.
Yeah, make a little vaccine in there. Looking forward to that. But yeah, I mean, I think that just, I just wish everyone a Merry Christmas. I really hope that people find new traditions, new things to establish with their families, new ways of storytelling that helps their world go round. Honestly, that is bigger than just the politics of the day, than who's the president, and then even just how well you're doing. Let it be something that is deeper, that connects you to your family, your history, and the things that you value the most.
Yeah. So that's exactly it, man. That's exactly what this show is about, is exploring those things. So for those watching, it looks like we've had about 5 or 6 folks who watched live throughout it. Let us know, what topics do you want us to explore? We're happy to talk about any of this. If there's specific works that you want us to get into, philosophical concepts, if you want us to get into culture, or even movies, whatever it is, let us know. TheBurkingConservative.com is where you can reach us out. Josh has an amazing podcast. I know I've talked about it before, Saving Elephants. Take a look at that. He had me on there, and that was a lot of fun. But he's had some amazing guests as well, and some really cool interviews to check out on there. And then we'll be here every Sunday night all the way through the new year. So we're looking forward to seeing you again. So thanks one last time, guys, and I will see you on our next show. All right.
Bye.